Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Leaving a Rich Legacy with Jessica Rich. I am your host, Jessica Rich, and with me today, I have Arrettres Hollins, who is going to share some wonderful, impactful information about what she's doing with her community and how it may help one of our viewers out there. As you all know, Leaving a Rich Legacy is truly a love letter to my younger self. It's an opportunity to bring forward just different topics that we don't often discuss in the Black and Brown community. So I'm super excited for our guest today, for us to just hear a little more about what she's doing and her shedding some insight on how she is impacting women. So, Arretries, it's so great to have you. Thank
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love your brand. It's amazing and how you're empowering lives.
you. Well, why don't you start off by just sharing a little bit about yourself? Who is Arretries?
Wow. Oh gosh. Well, for starters, I'm the founder of Connecting Love and Marriage, where I empower wives to heal from marital betrayal and, walk in the spiritual authority that's been given to them. I'm a mom. I'm a wife of 21 years. We have four amazing daughters. So, I just love everything that has to do with you living your life to the fullest and enjoying it, not waiting for a vacation, but enjoying life on a daily basis.
Ooh, I love that. Not waiting for a vacation, enjoying life every day. Awesome. So, tell me, what led you to becoming a coach? So I know that you focus on connecting love and marriage, but what inspired you?
Well, it's totally a God thing where he would always send women to me who were struggling in their marriage, who were experiencing some kind of betrayal and really having a hard time navigating through that, allowing it to overtake them. We do experience things in life, but it should never fuel our joy or take away from the amount of joy that we experience on a daily basis. So, my story started early. I was 14 when I lost my mom to marital betrayal. So over from the time of 14 until I finally said yes, I was struggling in some way and helping wives. So it's been somewhat of a lifelong journey, but um, I just got sick and tired of watching women suffer because of what someone else did to them.
So you can not only relate, but the experience that you had at a very young age. So I can only imagine what that means to you. So
Mhm.
when you think about interacting with wives in your own journey, right, until you said I do, what does marriage mean to you?
Oh, wow. Marriage really means two people learning to love each other and support each other and surrender to God in the process, which is can be a challenging experience because you have two people coming from two different upbringings trying to live with each other all of a sudden. So you're going to have natural challenges, but it's just learning to enjoy each other, learning to adapt and make life what you want it to be. I don't think anyone has to just follow the mold of or creation of someone else. Just because my sister has a marriage a certain way doesn't mean my marriage has to be that way. So it's just really creating a life that you really enjoy with someone you love.
So when you speak of betrayal, can you kind of share like what actually that can include for someone that's married?
Mhm. So I specialize in infidelity recovery. That's the number one betrayal aspect that I normally have brought to me. But marital betrayal can be anything from finances being spent that are not supposed to be spent. It could be struggles within raising children from different marriages or different relationships, and the dynamics of conversations being had with the other spouse and you're trying to navigate that season. But betrayal is really anything that contradicts the expectations that you have of your spouse.
Okay. Thank you for just the clarity on that. So when you think about infidelity and a woman experiencing that, why do you think it's so important to heal after that experience?
If you don't heal, every action you take, your thoughts, your process will be fueled and come from a place of pain or brokenness. You know, even if you do decide to stay and you're trying to rebuild with your husband, you're always going to see him through the lens of your brokenness. And not that you're broken, but the relationship and the trust has been broken and violated. I kind of see it as if I fall outside and my glasses fall off and they fall into the mud, I can't just pick them up and put them back on my face and say, okay, let me keep on going where I was going. I have to pause and clean my glasses so that I can see properly everything that's in front of me and I can continue my journey and the way that I choose. So healing to me is the cleaning of the glasses, getting rid of the hurt, the betrayal, the resentment, the anger, the frustration, the fear, the anxiety. There's so many emotions attached to that. And if we don't remove that, is going to hinder not just our relationship, but our relationship with everyone, because there's now this wedge in our heart.
How do you and your community support those women who are trying to heal after infidelity?
Mm. It starts with strengthening your relationship with God. I truly 100% believe that you cannot properly heal and restore marriage the way um, to the fullest, so that you can fully enjoy it without understanding who God is in your life, the power He has given you already, the peace He has already given you, and the victory over the enemy that He's already given you. When you've experienced heartache, sometimes it's hard for you to see and navigate and see the light at the end of the tunnel. But when you rebuild and solidify your foundation first through prayer, through connecting with God and rebuilding yourself, that'll help you to now be able to navigate through those tough conversations that you need to have with your husband, those tough decisions that you need to have regarding, do I stay or do I go? So it is, the foundation first needs to be rebuilt with God. And then with step two, it's understanding who you are. What are your desires? When you get married, unfortunately, most women lose themselves because they're trying to please and cater to their husband, which is a good thing. But we lose our own identity too in the midst of that. We become mom and wife, and we're no longer the woman that God called us to be, you know? So helping you to refine yourself and who am I? What do I really like? What do I really want? And then the third step is connecting in that marriage. What do I desire in this marriage? Who is the man? Who is the man that I want in my life? How do I want to be treated? How do I want to be loved? What are my expectations? So that's generally the process that I take wives through.
Okay. So, for those individuals who have experienced infidelity, right? So, it sounds like you help the one get back to God, rebuilding that relationship, that being a foundation of the
Mhm.
healing, and then going through those two steps. What about the women who are also blaming themselves? They are, beating themselves up, questioning, what did I do? What have I done differently? And they're sitting in that. What would be some encouraging words or advice would you give that individual?
Wonderful. It is not their fault. You cannot be held accountable or responsible for someone else's sin. I don't care how much you were fussing. I don't care if you gained weight. I don't care if you were tending to the children too much. I don't care if you were not giving him the time that he wanted. His decision to step out of the marriage is his broken relationship with God. It's him succumbing to the influence of the enemy. So what he should have done was have a conversation with you saying, babe, can I have more time with you? Babe, what can we do to connect? Honey, I would like more sex. Have a grown up conversation with you. So don't blame yourself. It has nothing to do with you. Now, on the other side of that, yes, you can do things to make sure you feel whole within your relationship, because sometimes it's because we're so focused on everyone else that we're no longer engaged in the marriage, but that does not make it your responsibility to keep him from cheating. So take the blame off of you. Do not allow the enemy to have you sitting in shame or condemnation that is not yours. Do not take his shame and guilt and place it on you. No, you are free. You are blessed. You are loved. And do not allow what was done to you to now define you as a person.
So I love that you talked about, it really both parties potentially taking ownership, but
Mm.
ultimately, the spouse that did step out, they made that decision. And just doing my own research on you, I saw that you had testimonials from women and men. So, do you provide a space for couples where before they get to that point, they're trying to reconcile? Do you provide coaching or some type of support to married couples before they get to maybe that point?
Yes, I do. In my one, because I have a group coaching program for wives, but I also have one-on-one coaching. It's designed usually for the wife, but then I open up the doors for the husband to also come in and have conversations. If they're having a tough situation and he's trying to also getting him to understand his role and what he should and should not be doing. Sometimes it takes a third party to come in and give the same information that the wife is giving. So just helping them to have those conversations together and giving her a space to freely speak to him and giving him an opportunity to hear his wife and speak freely with a third party there. So I do offer one-on-one coaching for couples as well.
That's awesome. When I saw that, I was like, "Oh, this is good." You are, of course, women are who your target audience is. You're focusing on them, but I can only imagine what you are also learning to support your community as well when you're having those one-on-one conversations with the husbands.
Hmm. Hmm.
So when you think about infidelity, you're trying to heal, you're trying to potentially find yourself, and maybe just going through the emotions, right? How can one focus on eliminating painful memories so
Hmm.
that they can create a space for peace and happiness in their life?
Mm. It's you have to be intentional about it. You have to, I refer to it as a telemarketer. If someone calls you because they're selling you that timeshare, would you like to purchase? Would you like to come in for this 90-minute presentation? You don't stay on the phone with them for 5 hours. No, thank you. I don't want this. And you get off the phone, you go about your business. It's the same thing with those recurring memories. God tells us to take our thoughts captive, make sure they're aligned with the word of God, or make sure they're aligned with what it is that we desire to focus on. So as women, we have to rise up in the power that's inside of us to say, you know what, I'm not going to allow these thoughts to continue to live and take up residence and space in my mind, understanding that the enemy is going to try because he's going to do his job. He's going to keep throwing them darts of those thoughts at you. That's his job. He gonna do it. But it's your job also to allow that shield of the Holy Spirit to say, nope, we're not gonna do that today, Satan. And making sure you're intentional to think about what you're thinking. When those thoughts come, you have to catch yourself and say, oh, no, no, no. I'm not gonna sit here and meditate on that. Because what you meditate on, it grows inside of you. Every thought and process that you meditate on, a seed is planted and that will grow. So just reminding women, you have the power. You do not have to allow those thoughts are darts from the enemy. And guarding your mind is the same way you would guard your toddler or a niece or a nephew. If you saw something coming at your niece or nephew, you would grab your niece and you would protect them by any means necessary. Have that same tenacity with your mind and guarding it from the thoughts that are trying to enter. And it's a process, and it takes time. You don't get it right 100% the first time, but you get to the point where it's like, nope, I'm not doing that. No, we're not doing that today.
I love that you mentioned, the reality is it is a process.
Mhm.
It's a journey. Of course, being intentional about those thoughts, but it's always an opportunity for us to give ourselves grace
Mm.
because with anything, when it's a journey, we want, right, those results so quickly, but we forget that, it takes time to get there. So I love that you mentioned that because that's so realistic. So just curious with the maybe it could be the wives or there's the couples that you interact with, but have you noticed that it's at a certain stage in the marriage where they may experience infidelity? Like, do you see it more early on in the marriage or later on, or does it just vary?
It varies. I've had women who found out their husbands were cheating from the beginning of the marriage. I've had wives, they found out while they were pregnant. Others later on, midlife crisis season. There's never a specific time when the enemy decides to attack your marriage in that way. But there are ways that we can safeguard it. But I've seen it at various stages. There isn't just one season.
So for the couples who are recently married and they are finding that they are struggling with
Mm.
connecting after the marriage, how do you help those couples?
One, I help them to first understand what are your expectations? What is it that you truly desire from this marriage? And have you expressed that to your spouse? My expectations were very different from my husband when we got married, but I just assumed he just needs to know. And he's not psychic. We want our husbands to study us. We want our husbands to know. But in reality, we're big girls. I coach high achieving wives. So they're normally the go-getters and they goal setters. So they're not the docile woman. So I always tell them, hey, why didn't you tell him what you want? If you want date night twice a month, sweet pea, let him know twice a month. I need you to wine and dine me. Or if you just want time on the couch, watching movies, binge watching TV with your spouse, let him know that's what you desire. It's important that one, we know what we want and then confidently express that to our spouse and make it plain for him so he can get it.
So do you think kind of what I hear and what you're sharing is also just communicating, right? Communicating your desires. Do you think women are hesitant of communicating that for a specific reason? What is just some of your experience behind being able to effectively communicate the desires of what you expect for the marriage when it comes to that specifically?
I think part of it is because we're doing so many things. We're taking care of the children. We're leading at work. We're managing other people. We honestly kind of just want our husband to figure it out and just come in and sweep in and kind of save us without saving us. Because most high achieving women, I don't need you to save me. I got it. I'm independent. But we really want our husbands to come in and just have it all figured out and do the things that we want. So I just think part of it is the fantasy that we were raised to believe. The prince charming comes in to save the woman and they go off and live happily ever after. No one's coming to save you, boo. That does not work that way. Um, and some of it is the fact that we're tired of telling everybody what to do. Okay. We need somebody to come in to pick up these pieces and know what needs to be done without me saying anything. But part of the reason why we're high capacity women is because we're high capacity women. We can manage and carry that weight and delegate. So sometimes it's just a matter of um some of the wives that I coach, I'll tell them, handle it like your business. He's one of your employees. Don't treat him like an employee, but kind of see him somewhat like a coworker. And you say, you know what? This is my expectation. This is what I want. Can you fulfill the needs? Can you fulfill the expectations of this role? And you have to do that, every week. You need to be having your meetings with your husband. You call them what accommodates to you, your relationship. But we'll call them family meetings. We'll call them love sessions where we're meeting and saying, well, honey, what do you expect of me this week? What do you need from me this week? And I have the same conversation with him so that we are constantly in a place where we are not on autopilot and hoping they figure it out.
Let me ask you this, and I don't know if you've had much experience, but when you shared some of that about one, realistically, they're not gonna know. They can't read our mind. Um, but what about, the individuals, it can be the wife or the husband who expected their partner to change after marriage. How does that show up in the coaching and that you see that could affect infidelity?
Hmm. part of you assuming that someone is going to, when you marry someone, and when I'm talking to newlyweds or I'm talking to people who are engaged, I always ask them, if they never change, will you be okay with spending the rest of your life with the exact person you are married to right this very moment? Because you're placing expectations on them that might not be a part of their destiny. You know, we're somewhat playing God when we do that, where we're saying, okay, well, you're going to grow in this area and you're going to become this person and you're going to evolve in this way. You're putting yourself in harm's way emotionally and mentally and setting yourself up for failure. So we have to start with the conversation of, if this person never changes, will I be okay with that? So you have to first start with, do I really like the person that I'm married to? And am I okay with them not evolving? Now, of course, we want them to evolve. Of course, we create an atmosphere and participate in situations where it's conducive to growth and transformation in our lives. Of course, we are going to change no matter what. But it's just a matter of being okay with the person at first and then understanding what are their desires of growth. What do they want to evolve into? What are their goals in life? And how are they planning on achieving those goals? Having those conversations before you put your expectations on them is going to save you lots of heartache later on.
I'm so happy that I asked you that question because that is something I've shared with others. You have to take into account that if this person never changes, you have to ask yourself, can you live with them for the rest of your life? Will you be happy?
Mm.
Because sometimes we see that resentment, right? And we start feeling a certain way when the person doesn't change. So I love that you're having that conversation with them because I think that's a reality that a lot of us just don't want to face
Mm.
until it's too late.
Yeah.
Until
Yeah.
it's too late.
Mhm.
So, you talked about helping engaged couples as well, which I think for engaged couples, it is so important to go through marriage counseling, to have a coach, to be able to bring in a third party in general, just to help them think about things that maybe they are not thinking about or give them a different perspective. So, what advice would you give engaged couples to help them with connecting prior to marriage, right? So, you've had experience where individuals get married and they're having trouble connecting. What about those individuals prior to them getting married to help them for marriage?
Mm. For starters, like you said, premarital counseling, coaching, they need to work with someone that they trust, someone who is married, preferably someone or who has experienced the navigation, the seasons of marriage. Someone who is honest and authentic and transparent, because you don't just want someone dictating to you. You want someone who can share their authentic experience as well. So premarital counseling is necessary. You also need to have a mentor couple. You need a couple who's been seasoned, someone who like each other, not just any married person, okay? A couple that actually like the person that they're married to, so that they can be authentic with you about marriage. And because things are going to happen. 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, you're going to have challenges and conversations where your natural instinct is to run. It won't even have to be infidelity, but it might get, a little rocky. And you're like, you know what? I can do bad by myself, or I could do good by myself. But you need a couple who's going to speak life into you and remind you of your purpose and remind you of the call that God has over your life. Someone who's going to pray with you, let you vent, let you be real and authentic, and then say, okay, baby, I'm glad you got that out your system. Now, where are we going to go from here? You going back to your husband, right? Go pray with your husband. Go love on your husband. So I think it's important that you have that mentor. And then you need a couple that's another couple where you just gonna laugh and cut up with. You need friends who are married where y'all have game night and we just laughing and hee-hees and ha-has because it lessens the weight of married life and adulting. We were growing up, we had friends we went to play with and hang out with, and it made life fun. As adults, we still need that. Those couples that are just on our level, in the trenches with us, and ready to have fun and make this a joyful experience.
I'm so happy you said that. I'm not surprised that you said that, but about having other married couples. I'm single, I've never been married. And the one thing that I share with my girlfriends is get some married friends,
Mm-hmm.
be around married couples because there are things that you may have been used to coming to me for as a single woman. I can no longer help you, or I no longer choose to give advice. I can be there as an ear to hear you if you need to vent, if it's something I feel comfortable with. But a lot of times, I do not put myself in that conversation because I feel like I am not equipped to have that conversation with you. Sometimes, some things, right, I can, but for the most part, I've never been married. So I feel like being around other married couples can share similar challenges or experiences, whether that's right after marriage, when you go through those rocky times, they're going to be the best people to actually give you feedback and help you get through that versus someone who's single. And nothing against having single friends. I'm not saying you don't have to, but I truly believe that the best fit for that is someone who's actually gone through it.
Yes, exactly.
So we talked about a little bit earlier, just women kind of struggling with their desires and communicating what they want. But I saw that you focus on anger management. And I think anger management for men and women are all important, adults, children, at any age and stage. But why do you think effective communication is so important in a marriage?
Mm. I think it's important that we fully understand before we get to the place where we're communicating, that we have to really know what's the emotion that I'm really dealing with here. From how I was raised, the go-to emotion to show was anger. Unfortunately, what I was really feeling was fear. What I was really feeling was worry. What I was really feeling was sometimes shame, and it would come out as anger. So we have to really be intentional about knowing what is it that I'm really feeling and why am I feeling this way? Is this really something that my spouse has ignited in me, or is there some childhood trauma that's being triggered by something that's being said or done? I I don't have statistics on this, but I truly believe most of the things that we struggle with in relationships where we're pointing the finger at our spouse, it has to deal with something, some unhealed area of our life from something that we've experienced before. So we have to be intentional about one, starting with what am I really feeling here? Why am I feeling this? And then secondly, is this something that my spouse is required to fix? Some of it is an issue that needs to be taken up with me and God. It's like, God, heal this area in me. I'm frustrated. I'm stressed. Or how do I navigate through this, Lord, by myself? And then there are times when it's like, okay, I know what I'm feeling. I know why I'm feeling it. And it got everything to do with you, sir. Okay. So, so let's sit down and have this conversation and not just venting for 2 and 3 hours. What is the goal? What is it that I truly desire? What is it that I want to be the result of this conversation? I know sometimes in conversations where we're having them tough ones, we just going on and on and on and on and on. But I believe when we start with this is the goal that I want to accomplish first. Handle it like a business, high achieving woman. When you go into that meeting, there's a goal at the end of the meeting. Same thing with this conversation with your spouse. He's offended you in some way. What is the expectation and the goal that I want us to arrive at? And focus on taking that path there, not spiraling out of control. And then make sure that we're checking in on a regular basis, not just when you're frustrated, because that creates this energy of, oh gosh, here we go again. She wants to talk. It must be something bad. We don't want him to tense up every time you say you want to chat.
I think that and the tensing up is a good sign that you need to change your communication. That's the same as just in any environment, right? If someone feels that way, there may be a different approach that you potentially can have. So
Mhm.
I'm a huge self-care, self-love, self-worth advocate. Like all those things is important to me. It's a part of my community and what I encourage. So when I think about these women who have experienced infidelity and they may be trying to find themselves. They may be blaming themselves. I can only imagine how they are feeling about themselves when it comes to self-love and self-worth. So, how do you help them after the betrayal, getting back to identifying self-love and self-worth?
Mhm. I love self-care. I love that the era that we're in where we're taking care of ourselves. I think unfortunately we're not tapping into the inner emotional self-care. We're getting the massages, we're getting the mani-pedis, we're doing the external things. And I think it's important that we address the inner conversation that we're having with ourselves. That's a part of self-care. Being mindful that we're not harming ourselves from the inside out and dealing with these thoughts and allowing yourself to stay in a dark place. Equipping you to say, okay, you don't have to stay there. I understand you're hurting. I understand you feel broken, but let's deal with the inner conversation that you're having. We talk very aggressively to ourselves in our minds sometimes. We chastise ourselves extremely way too much. Unfortunately, oh, did I do that or did you do that?
I have no idea what that. I saw it though. Maybe it was agreeing with you. It was agreeing with what you were saying.
I love that. But I really think we have to start with that inner conversation. Um, Scientists say that the conversation you have with yourself is normally the voice of the person who raised you or who poured into you the most. And it made sense to me because the voice I normally hear is my father's chastising. I hear the negative conversation. I hear the condemnation. I hear that you should do better or you're not doing enough or you could do. It's not the loving, Arrettres, you did an amazing job. Let's make some adjustments, but you're doing awesome. So I think that inner conversation that we're having with ourselves, we need to add that intentionally to the self-care movement that we're doing. Be gentle with yourself. One of the things I'm always telling my wives, grace and ease is your portion. So be gentle with yourself. You don't have to overcome or build Rome in a day. Be calm. Learn to be loving with yourself. Sometimes you got to treat yourself like the toddler that you want to be. Be caring with yourself, be patient with yourself, and be very mindful of that inner dialogue that you're having with yourself, and speak to her the way you would speak to a brand new baby.
And you made a really good point. So I hadn't heard the part about the conversation you may have will be with somebody in your life that with prior experiences. So that's huge. But I've also heard that we will never have a conversation more than anyone else than ourselves. So
Mm,
just imagine, depending on what you're hearing, whether it's positive or negative, you're repeating that information to yourself. And that is the most that you're going to have a conversation with anyone in your life. So it's so important to be intentional. I do agree. Self care is more than just spending money. Um, it
I
is
know.
definitely pouring into yourself, journaling, meditating, devotional time. It's a part of my self care in the morning, but it's really feeding yourself. And I think that is so important that you said that. So but that at the beginning, what you shared is really good. I did not know that. So that makes me want to have some self awareness for myself to say, okay, where is this coming from? So I think
Mm,
that's great. So you
mhm,
even talked about some of the what you hear in your head is coming from your father. And this is my favorite question of the podcast. So
mhm.
if you could have a conversation with your younger self, what would you tell her?
You are worthy. You are love. Dream bigger and expect more.
Okay.
I would really, um, especially as Black women, we're raised to hustle, grind, take care of everybody else, suffer mentality. Suffering. We don't have to suffer. No, you are worthy of all the love that you truly desire. And anyone who's unable to fulfill that role needs to be removed immediately before you say, I do.
Yes. Okay. Well, Richards, thank you, one, for being here today, sharing your wealth of knowledge. Is there anything that you would like to share that you didn't get an opportunity to share with us?
Well, I do have an amazing resource available for any woman who's interested. It's called the Renewed Mind series, where it takes a deep dive into your thoughts and taking captive those thoughts and walking in the power and rebuilding your faith, so that you can live that life you truly desire. And if they find me on social media, or they can go to connectingloveandmarriage.com /what's new. They'll see all my resources there.
Awesome. And I will include all of that information for you all in the caption on how you can connect with her. As she stated, there are some resources available for you. So if you're married, if you are engaged, tap into this community and see one of the most important things we all have to realize is there are resources for mostly everything. And you don't have to do it alone. So, what your community is doing to provide support, whether that woman decides to leave or not, there is support there for you to help you along the journey of healing. So, Arrettres, I just thank you for being here today, sharing your knowledge, and I look forward to connecting in the future.
Yay, thank you, my sister.
Thank you. Have a good day.